Oi, gente. Boa noite. Tudo bem? Como é que vocês estão? Já vi que tem gente aqui que já deixou recadinho. Olha lá, ó. Elisângela já deixou um recado aqui, ansiosa, embora não entenda nada em inglês. Mas eu vou tentar traduzir algumas coisas, vou trazer mais informação para vocês. Depois aqui, vamos de live perfumada. O Wellington já deixou mensagem também. Então, o pessoal entrando aqui. Vamos lá, hoje tem live. E eu vou falar com a Saskia. A Saskia é a fundadora do Instituto Art and Olfaction. Então, vou trazer aqui essa informação para vocês. E isso daqui é super legal esse momento. Estou esperando só o pessoal entrar. Tem gente entrando já. O live vai ser em inglês. Depois eu vou deixar salvo. Vou trazer algumas coisas em português aqui no meio do caminho. Converso um pouco com ela, converso um pouco com vocês. Quem tiver pergunta, vai mandando a pergunta. Olha aí, já tem gente dando boa noite aqui, ó. Boa noite da Natália. Boa noite do Antônio. Então, hoje eu vou conversar com a Saskia. A Saskia é a fundadora e a diretora do Instituto Art and Olfaction. Então, vou trazer um pouco mais de informação para vocês que são aí apaixonados por perfumes. Boa noite, Miriam. Boa noite, Rose. Olha aqui também, Elisângela aqui de novo. Então, tudo bem, gente? Vamos lá. Eu sei que o live vai ser em inglês, é um pouquinho mais complicado para todo mundo, porque nem todo mundo fala inglês, ou nem todo mundo entende super bem, mas faz parte aí para a gente começar. A Larissa entrou, aqui a Larissa, ó. Oi, Larissa, boa noite. Então, a gente vai trazer aqui informação bem legal. Joacir, boa noite, Joacir. Vamos ver quem mais está aqui, ó. A Bruna está aqui, Márcia está aqui, o Eduardo. Obrigado, Eduardo, pelo carinho. Obrigado, viu? Gil, boa noite. Vamos lá, Elisângela. Vamos lá, vamos fazer as perguntas aqui. Vamos trazer bastante informação. E qualquer coisa, se eu não perguntar, se eu não trouxer, faz de novo. Que eu vou estar de olho aqui e vou tentar trazer o máximo de perguntas possível. Olha aqui, ó. Legal. Marcelo Apolinário, boa noite. E o Gabriel aqui, The Perks of Being an English Teacher. Então, olha, tá vendo? Já tem gente participando aqui um pouquinho. Boa noite, Birajara. Vamos lá, Elisângela. Vou dar mais 1 minuto, 1 minute, e a gente começa, we will start. E aí eu trago a Saskia aqui, e a gente começa já esse bate-papo. Quem já teve tempo de olhar o Art and Olfaction? Olhou ou no site, ou no Instagram, por aí, para entender um pouquinho mais o que eles fazem, para a gente poder bater esse papo aqui bem gostoso. Ó, entrou também o Esper, Frangipane Perfumes, Everlyn, boa noite, Jaciara, boa noite, o Jefferson, Patrícia. Depois, na hora que eu estiver conversando, de repente eu não consigo olhar todo mundo aqui, tá? Então, só para relembrar, live hoje é em inglês, vai começar em inglês. Eu vou conversar aqui com a Saskia. A Saskia está lá na Califórnia, e a gente vai falar sobre o Art and Olfaction, que é um instituto que ela fundou. Ela vai contar um pouco da história dela, e aí eu trago um pouco de informação para vocês aqui, tá certo? Davis, tá aqui também. Aqui. Guilherme, Osvaldo, Georgina, olha aqui, ó, Carlos, Vinícius, boa noite, gente, boa noite, como é que vocês estão? Tudo bem? Então, agora eu vou convidar a Saskia para entrar, vou abrir aqui a câmera e a gente começa esse bate-papo, já que foram quase 5 minutos, tá certo? Então, vamos lá.
Hi.
Hey, Saskia. Good evening. Good evening here. Good afternoon there. So, how are you?
I'm doing okay. I wish I knew how to say good afternoon in Portuguese, but I'm doing well. Thank you. What is it?
Boa tarde.
Boa tarde.
Perfect. Just
Thanks.
perfect.
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Sorry. Continue.
No, I was just responding. I'm doing okay. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Very good. It's a pleasure to have this opportunity to talk to you. So you can have also the time to know a little bit more about Brazilians. So what we like, how do we live, and we talk, and we smell, and we do everything regarding fragrance. We are very perfumed. We are very perfumed human beings. So we love fragrance. It's something really important. And have the opportunity also to share your history and what you have been doing and why you have decided to start the Art and Olfaction Institute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. It's super cool, and I wish I spoke Portuguese, you guys. I'm sorry.
maybe soon. Maybe soon.
Maybe. I'm learning Arabic.
A lot of Brazilian followers, so maybe it will happen.
I'll have to.
Let's see. So first of all, if you can share a little bit about your history, because I know that you haven't started your career with fragrances, but you started with film, like you were a film producer or something like that. If you can share a little bit about your history, your professional history, and also maybe bring some personal insights about fragrance in your life or your family life, how it happens, how you did connect with fragrance. I will listen to you, and sometimes I will interrupt you just to say a few things in Portuguese, just to keep the audience here like understanding a little bit.
No problem. Okay? Yeah. Well, so I mean, unlike a lot of people, I think in fragrance, I didn't start as a fan of fragrance. You know, I was working in a TV network in California, and I studied art. You know, so my background is I'm an artist, but I started learning about the fragrance industry, and I started making comparisons from how the fragrance industry is similar to the film industry, in that there are these big companies like IFF or Givaudan or Symrise or, you know, whoever, that are producing most of what we consume, you know, as consumers. And it's very similar in film and television, where you have these, you know, 20th Century Fox or whatever, the film studios or the TV networks that are producing most of what we consume visually. So, but in film and TV, in about 2005, YouTube came, and suddenly that power shift completely changed, where all these people were making content, you know, like you are, and like I do also, you know. And that was totally impossible before YouTube, and that it's all changed since then. But in perfumery, when I discovered the industry, I didn't see that. You know, there were people working independently, but not to the scale that YouTube was doing for filmmakers. And the main reason I thought people weren't really doing it at that scale was because they didn't have access to the materials and the knowledge. Okay. You know, as everybody knows, it's a fairly secretive and closed industry, you know. And this was 9 years ago. It's very much changed since. But so I started the Institute as a nonprofit to create, you know, access to the materials and the knowledge of perfume, so people who wanted to work with scent could.
Okay, great. So it's a nice history, and it's a nice parallel that you did, because I think that YouTube has changed a lot the way we see everything. So you see people like working with makeup, fashion, and which is something that was like only the kingdom of the big network channels, and now it's open to everyone. Everyone with an internet connection and a camera can do a lot. It's amazing. It's really nice. And another thing that I like it a lot is that you made a parallel between the film industry and the perfumery industry, and also you brought some mystery on the perfumery industry, because there's a lot of things are happening there, and mystery is one of the things. I do teach fragrance to the public in general, because I have my courses also, and it was opened. I have just opened to the public like a year and a half ago, and I see how avid they are for information, because everything is so mysterious. So what is a wood smell? How the wood smells? How would a flower, different flower like ylang ylang smells? Because you only read it. And I can imagine that a lot of people are kind of envy of your shelves on the back of your back. I can see all the small vials over there.
Yeah, there's more.
So it's amazing. It's what everyone wants, like the perfumer desks, like the perfumer organ, so you can create something. And another thing which is nice is the connection with fragrance, because fragrance is emotion, like filmmaking, film producing is emotion. I can tell you Brazil is the country of soap operas. So it's something that every Brazilian is connected to in different levels, but really connected. So it's like daily life on TV. But it's amazing when you want to touch or create an emotion, you choose the right song or the right place or the right face, and it's emotion. With fragrance, it's the same thing, but it's the emotion that you cannot touch. It's intangible. So that's the only difference, but it's emotion anyway.
Exactly. Storytelling, you know, I mean, you can tell a story, you can convey that emotion with fragrance. And I mean, and for me, that was what was so interesting about fragrance especially when I first came to it, was like, oh, wow, like I've never thought about fragrance in the context of, well, emotion, but also in the context of telling a story, you know, I mean, you know, it's not, I'm sure, you know, it's no mystery. Perfume can tell a story, you know, you can have the top notes, the convey, and the middle notes, and the base. You can have this whole narrative with scent. You know that it never occurred to me before. I became interested in perfume. So, yeah, it's very cool you're teaching. And as far as I know, you're one of the few people in Brazil teaching publicly. So you'll have to send me your information so we put you on our map, because we have a map of people teaching worldwide. And I'm very happy to have someone in Brazil. Yeah.
I'm honored to do that. Thank you very much.
Oh, no, please. We're trying to create a global map of resources for people who are sharing information. So, yeah. Anyway.
So amazing. So Davis is saying like, good evening to you.
Good evening.
He's connected here. Also, let me see. Jusimaya is saying good evening also to both of us. So everybody here is connected to hear what you have to say. So fragrance is something that is pretty much born with Brazilians. We have like a command. So you have to shower, you have to take a shower, you have to take a bath. So showering and bathing is really important, and also being fragranced, so that the other person can smell your fragrance and understand that you are like a clean person. It's really important. It's a different culture, completely different from other countries, and it's something very, very, very nice. But you had a career on movies, and you have decided on 2012, if I'm not mistaken, to create the Institute of Art and Olfaction. So working with different arts, like art as everything that can be art, also fragrance and olfaction, because olfaction is also art. So both things. How did this idea came to you? And what were your first steps to make it happen?
Well, I read a book, actually. Somebody gave me a book, which maybe you've read as well, called The Emperor of Scent by Chandler Burr. It's about Lukather, of course, yeah. So someone gave me that book, and I was working at this TV network, and I was pretty unhappy, you know, because I was responsible for finding people to make content around the world to put it on air. And I don't know, I was talking to all these filmmakers and saying, hey, make content for the TV network. And, you know, we'd have Brazilian people and they'd be like, you know, or French people or whatever. And they'd be like, yeah, cool, you know. And I'd say, okay, we're going to pay you $100 and you lose the rights to your content. And they were like, you know, no, thank you. So it was a very uncomfortable position for me to be in. And I have all these ethics around it as well. So anyway, I read this book and I started seeing how the parallel between media and perfume was so direct. So I started thinking about, well, I wanted to learn about working with scent. And, you know, a little background is that I was raised French. So I was raised in the French culture. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then my father's Cuban. So there's certainly like, Cubans, like Brazilians, have a real relationship with scent, you know, which in the US we don't have. Like the US is very, you know, scent phobic. But so there was this sort of background of scent in my life, you know, in terms of cultural, but I had never embraced it really. But anyway, long story short, I started learning and appreciating more about perfumery and scent. And I thought I'd open the Institute because I wanted to learn and no one would teach me.
Okay.
You know, it's changed since, but
very
you know,
close the industry.
Yeah, in 2012, so I wrote to all these people in France, like, bonjour, je veux apprendre. And they were like, no, you know, no one wanted to teach me. In fairness, they're adults and they have jobs, you know, who has the time to teach someone? But yeah, so I opened the Institute because I selfishly wanted to learn. And I also thought that it would be interesting to create a place where people could learn about scent outside of the context of sales. that you could work with scent for in support of a movie or an art piece, or just as an art piece itself. And then, of course, also if you want to start a brand, I mean, we help with that. But really, the focus was on the art side. So outside of commerce, outside of, perfume sales, because we didn't want to compete also with the perfumers. We're here to support people learning and discovering scent, not create more perfumes for people to buy. So, that's sort of how I started it.
Great. There's a comment here from Frangipani. Frangipani is a friend of mine. His name is Esper, and he's a passionate guy when we talk about fragrance, related to fragrance. And he wrote that apparently everyone starts with Imperial of the Scent.
Yeah, so, that or Essence and Alchemy by Mandy Aftel is another one that everyone...
Yeah. No, it's amazing. This one is like my, the book that I carry with me everywhere, because there's always something that I need to look up, and it's there. So the information is there. It's amazing. It's really nice. On my nightstand, I have the version in Portuguese, and on my shelf book, I have the one in English.
That's cool.
It's really nice. It's really nice.
Oh, Mandy will be thrilled.
I like it a lot. So it's amazing what you said again, because one of the things that, in my case, drew me to start this open school to everyone interested on fragrance, for a person that wants to do something different, from a person who wants to open up their own fragrance business, or someone that already worked with fragrance, but as you said, and I can understand that it's even hard in France, you want to learn, so people may ask you, so anyone in your family is a perfumist, so how do you respect that and whatever, so otherwise, like in Paris, it's like, it's like this, so it's like, you have no chance, who do you know in this business? No one, so no one.
Forget it, I mean, and we have, I think you Brazilians and us Americans, we have a similar problem, which is that we're not European, I mean, and I'm in California, so really I consider California part of Central America. I mean, we're Latin American in California, But so the point is, our references aren't coming from France, or England. I mean, we have the colonialism, of course, but we're something else, and I think that for traditional perfumery, this sort of idea that, I mean, I'll speak for myself, that some girl in California wants to be a perfumer, not to simplify, but most people are like, you're right. Like, how are you able to be a perfumer, young lady? And I was just like, I'm sorry, but how am I not? Why am I not as entitled to this as anybody else?
I completely agree with you, and that kind of drives me to the next question. Question, and highlighting something that you were doing, something that you started like in 2012, and that you are still doing it, which is amazing. And I invited everyone already to, the ones that didn't know about Art and Olfaction, to look up on internet, Instagram, etc., know a little bit more about what you're doing, because you are giving the opportunity to like natural, handmade, niche fragrances that most of the time, maybe in the past it's changing, and it's changing fast. But like 5 or 10 years ago, most of those brands, the brands that are well established today, nobody knew anything about it. And it's something that is popping up because there are many new brands rising with different ideas, which is so rich, which is so good, because you have the opportunity to just create. Like the perfumery in the beginning of the 90s, they were creating just what they believe they should create, and not just, one works better with the public, so let's test it, see if it's going to sell well or not. So if you can tell us a little bit more about why have you decided to work with a part of the industry start, like focusing on niche, indie, or I don't know, very specific fragrance developments?
Well, I think, I mean, look, I started to work with that part of the industry because I didn't have access to the other part of the industry, I mean, it's that simple. But over the years, I mean, my interest is in, and it was the same when I was at the TV network, before when I ran a film festival, before when I was an artist. I'm interested in independent creative impulses, my life's work as a person is facilitating and finding ways to help empower individual creative people, you know. So like, you know, I love the people I know who are working within the fragrance industry. They're good people, they do good work, you know. I have zero issue with it. It's not a one or the other, but I happen to think that the people who are independent need more help, you know. I mean, what can I bring to IFF, you know? What do they need me? But you know, some young person in Los Angeles or, you know, Mexico City or, you know, Sao Paulo, wherever, who wants to learn about scent needs the people to help them learn, you know, just to be like, okay, here's the percentage solution you need. Here's how to be safe, just basic things, you know. So that was really why I started in that space and remain in the independent artisan niche space, because the independent artisan niche space needs more help and support, you know. I mean, the Boticario is not having a problem, you know what I mean? But the smaller brands, it's harder. Yeah.
Okay, I agree. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I think it's very lovely. I understand that why you started there. It was the connections that you had, or the connections that you didn't have, so that drove you there. But it's nice because it gives opportunity to people, and it's amazing. Yeah. So if you are like doing your fragrance in your house, creating the things there, or if you're a little bit bigger and even like niche or producing on a third-party company, on a manufacturer, and you have the opportunity. So everyone has the opportunity, which is nice.
Yeah, it's about. I mean, if perfumery is an art, and if humans have a right to create art, then everyone should have a right to work with scent. You know, it's a human rights issue, really. It's art. We're entitled to be creative, you know. I know, overstating it a little, but I believe that, you know, it's
No, perfect. And also Paula wrote here for sure, so she agrees with us. And it's true. It's true. And you give freedom, because one thing that I agree, and I think it's really important with fragrance, is that fragrance is a ticket that can help you to travel anywhere, present, past, future, a place that you have never been, a place that you've been and you miss it, a person that you miss. So once you smell a fragrance, you can have this connection again, and so it's so beautiful. It's a beautiful art.
I totally agree.
And why have you decided to have like a non-profitable association institute, right?
Yeah, I mean, whatever. It's the same, yeah. A nonprofit organization. My mom asks me that every day. So it wasn't the smartest move, I think. Well, okay, because in the perfume industry, it is such a for-profit industry, I thought that if I was going to create a space that was facilitating creativity, you know, and creating access, then it comes down to not competing with the people you serve. You know, we have to be supportive of the independents and not compete with the independents. So by being a nonprofit, we can do that. You know, we don't have to sell product. We don't have to do that. We can, you know, rely on other, although I'll tell you, in the United States, having a nonprofit is extremely difficult because there's no government funding to, you know, so in retrospect, it was probably silly, but I felt like nonprofit allowed me to do this in a way that I felt was, in line with my own morals, you know, my own beliefs.
Great.
Larissa, I'm glad you agree. Most people, it's funny because when I talk about like this stuff, you know, and I'm not being too political, I won't, but there are times where I get very political, and I'm surprised at how many people are like, yeah, you know, perfume is more than product, you know, it is.
Yes.
We do have a right to this. It's, yeah, so I'm glad you agree, Larissa.
No, perfect. Then you have decided in 2013 to create the award. Is that right?
Yeah.
So how did this idea came up to you, and how difficult it was to start, and also like to promote what you are doing, to have the companies looking at you and say, okay, I want to be part of this award. It's something nice. And how did that happen?
Well, it was actually, there's a perfumer here in the US called Bruno Fazzolari, who there was an award mechanism, a small one, independent one in the Bay in California that he basically approached. He wrote me an email and he said, "Hey, you know, the institute should run an award." And I used to run a film festival, and I know how hard it is, you know. And I was like, I'm not doing that. No way am I running an award mechanism. Also, because there's the Fifi Awards and there's other awards out there that are they do a great job. But when I started thinking about the mission of the Institute, which is to facilitate and support independent practices, I realized that part of the problem, one of the things that was challenging for independence was promotion, basically, if we could find a way to elevate independent practices as a whole, we'd be doing a good job, vis-a-vis or in comparison with mainstream perfumery, which again doesn't need any help. They're doing just fine, So the award was started for that reason. Was like, okay, well, let's make the independent practices on a global scale have more importance culturally, so that independent practitioners as a whole, are elevated and brought to the fore, and it starts competing with the mainstream a little bit, So that's why I started it. 7 years ago.
Okay, so it's true, and I agree with you, and I think it's a way to make different fragrances more democratic. So it's a way that people can see them, because most of them, or they only have like a website, or most of them, they don't have a website. And I'm talking about smaller brands, because some of the brands I saw that are listed or finalists are like
tiny brands, yeah.
And very big.
And then big ones too, yeah.
You have both there. So it's nice, and it's really nice to understand that there is space for everyone. It's a big window for everyone, which is great. And for people like me and you and others that are here, like passionate for fragrance, is a way to discover new brands. Is a way to understand better.
That's the goal. Yeah, and also to create an appetite for discovery. I mean, maybe look, you run an awards mechanism and you come out with a finalist list, and 3/4 of the world is like, this is great. 3/4 of them are like, this is stupid. I mean, no one ever agrees on what is good in perfume. So. I mean, I try to be clear, and it's impossible, because when you run an award mechanism, no one believes you. But I try to be clear that it's not about, who's the best or who's the worst or who's winning or who's not winning. It's about creating a bigger presence for independence in general, But it's really, look, I'll tell you, running an award mechanism is no fun. It's really stressful. I'm sure how political the perfume world can be. It's not a fun process, and people get mad, and some people are happy. But I still think that it's worth it, because we're promoting independent practices. Okay. It needs to be done. So, but yeah, it's not an easy process for sure. It's really hard.
Yeah, I agree. So you were based in California, but you told us that your father is Cuban, and you were raised in like French way, but in France. Like your mother is French.
My mother is English, but she lived in France for most of her life. So she sent me to France. I was in a French school in California, but also she sent me to Paris. A lot. Growing up, so I was raised speaking French, not English primarily, and I did my baccalaureate in French, and but largely in America. So I'm sort of in the culture, but not in the culture. It's complicated,
Okay. Yeah, I understand. And now you are based in California, which for me it's an amazing place, because you have the best from US and you have the best from Central America or Latin America. In a way, you have the weather, you have the wine, you have skiing, you have everything. So it's like an oasis there. So I like it a lot. And you hold the award there, but also you did that in Europe. Why did you do that, like in US and in Europe? And what were the different experience that you had in both continents, in both places? Because in Europe, like in London, Berlin, and
Amsterdam. Yeah. Well, we were doing them in LA because, I live here and it's easy, for me, because I know people, I know venues. And then what I started to realize was that, I was raised internationally, like many of you, I'm sure. I'm influenced by other cultures. And what I started to realize, and especially in the United States, you have a tendency when you live here and work here to think that the US is the world, Like, everyone thinks that everyone in the world cares about Trump, because that's all we hear. And it's so big that you forget that there's a world, So, and I was really, really keen that the Perfume Awards, at least, were reflective of the global community. because we live in a global world now, I mean, you're in Brazil right now, I'm in the US, and we're talking to all these people. It's geography becomes sort of irrelevant, and I think especially as our online presence has become bigger. So I wanted the awards to be international, truly international, not just European, But what I realized is that for the perfume industry, if you want to be, how do I phrase this? I mean, if you want to be global, you have to get attention, and in order to get attention in perfumery, you kind of have to go to Europe a little bit. I totally avoided Paris. I know, and I was like, we're not going to do Paris. It's too obvious, no. So we picked cities that aren't perfume capitals per se, but do have independent scenes, thriving independent scenes. So Berlin has a really cool scene. London has a really cool scene. Amsterdam has a really cool scene. And the plan, before coronavirus hit, was to do 1 year here. So, we rest and we do it. And then I was actually going to do Havana, but Trump put an end to that. Yeah. But it's to do,
as
South
a Brazilian,
America.
I had luck to go there. So I have visited already Cuba. So it's in my heart.
Amazing.
And it's an amazing place.
We had a venue in Old Havana all worked out. It was all worked out, but Trump.
Wow. Okay.
We won't go there.
Wow. Different story. Yeah.
So now we're doing it online, and then we'll see where we go. But the plan is to travel it around the world, just because we really do want to reflect the global nature of the industry, of the independent industry,
Perfect. And I love this idea. I think it's very nice. It's very nice to be there and in Europe, and maybe soon, if Cuba is not working right now, maybe São Paulo, maybe Mexico City.
The plan was certainly Brazil at some point, believe me. Yeah. So, Mexico City would be easy and fun too. Yeah.
So bringing up Brazil, I have two questions here for you. The first one is if you do know some Brazilian perfumery companies, and big ones or small ones, if you can name them, if you know them, if you don't know a lot. And then I also have a second question.
Well, I mean, the obvious ones are Natura and forgive my pronunciation, but Boticario, the big ones. And I think I was telling you, Fabio, before we went live, that I spent a day with both of those companies at some point in the last couple of years. So, but I mean, in terms of smaller companies, I mean, obviously, there's AMI, who are finalists for the awards this year, and there's others, but I'd love to just talk about the ones that I know currently.
Okay.
And, certainly, I'm noticing an increased amount of independent companies from Brazil, but not to the degree that I'm noticing from other places, actually. So, and I'm curious about why that is,
Okay. So, of course, there is AMI, which is one finalist in one of the awards. Then we will talk about this category later. And because I have other questions for you here. So this one from Gabrielle. You said you were trying to map reps around the world. Fabio's being number for sure.
Right.
I'd like to know your opinion about the ultimate fragrance. Will there ever be such a thing or not?
Well, I can only speak from my experience watching the judges at the awards. I don't judge the awards, but it's really hard, to decide what the fragrance is. And I mean, you guys all know this, it's so personal, it's so tied to your own likes and your dislikes. I think the best answer is the ultimate things that people hate is pretty consistent. Like people are disgusted by very similar things, even though they don't like similar things. So I think if you're looking for agreement, go to the things that everybody hates, and everybody hates, the smell of rotting animals who are dead. I mean, there are things that as humans we are disgusted by. So it's the anti-ultimate.
I agree with you, and I do some consulting for Brazilian and firms in Latin America. And once they start saying to me, I want something different, and the next phrase is, how much we are going to put on testing? There's no testing. So because if you test and it's accepted, it's not different.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
Rejected. So
it's the same with film. It's the same with movies. I mean, it's why at least American movies, mainstream American movies, tend to be like the same exact formula because people like it. The more risky stuff doesn't succeed.
I agree.
Yeah.
Then I have another question here from Luis. So Luis is talking about other Brazilian niche indie firms. I don't know if you know. So he's mentioning like Sapientia Niche, Atelier, Segal e Baruch. There are other companies. And so he's asking about independent fragrances, if you know them, or if other brands, if other independent fragrance brands have applied for the award from Brazil, of course. If they applied, they were not selected as finalists, or not, it was only Ami.
I'd have to look at the actual. We got a lot of submissions, so the top of mind, I can't tell you who applied. I know we've gotten a few submissions from Brazil over the years. We don't share who applies unless they're finalists because
No,
they don't, they don't want people to know that they didn't make it, So, but there's been a Brazilian representation. Last year in the Sadakichi Award, which is for the artist, olfactory art, which is different, but we had a Brazilian woman win that.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, right now her name's escaping me, but it will come back. But yeah, so we've definitely had Brazilians applying, but this is, as far as I can remember, this is our first Brazilian finalist in the artisan independent categories. So congratulations to Ami. That's it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. It is a big deal. It is a big deal. So they have a great idea. So they build something nice. So how did you create the categories? They change it over time. You have kept this one and you changed it to others, or you just added categories. How did that work for you?
Well, it's really hard. So I mean, okay, like I would challenge you, for instance, you and 5 friends to define artisan. No one will agree.
Yes.
So we had to do that for artisan independent. Really difficult. And what I found was that, you only learn how to define the categories through mistakes, So for instance, in the first couple of years, we were super strict about artisan. It has to be something that, I make at home, my hand, or in my lab. My hand is in every aspect of how the perfume is made, etc. And then what we found that is, for instance, in Europe, for instance, the perfumers can't work that way because IFRA, EU regulation is quite a bit stronger than the US. Wow. So I realized that we were defining artisan by American standards, which don't necessarily apply to European perfumers. So we've really gone through a lot of different iterations of thinking about it. And believe me, I mean, the fights and the feedback and it's very difficult to define, but we came down to a definition that I feel really good about it because it accommodates both, regulation, which is important for a lot of people, and also the sort of handmade aspect of artisan. And so the way I personally, or the awards define artisan is if the person who owns the company or co-owns the company also wrote the formula. The original, the formula. Now, where that gets tricky is if that formula was sent out to a compounding laboratory, for instance, and someone else made it, and maybe they had to make a tweak for regulations reasons or whatever. It can start to get a little bit like, well, like how much is the compounding lab now a perfumer? But to be honest, I think that just gets into shades of neurosis that I can't deal with, So I think our definition is fair, We added an extra award because of all the sort of handmade artisans who really believe the artisan has to be something that is made by you at every stage of the process, including bottling the perfume, all of it. So we added a handmade award as well, which really helps sort of give them recognition as well. But, for as many cultures as participate, there's different cultures of how people define artisan and independent. It's really impossible to get a global agreement on these things, like many things in perfumery, I might add, So we set ours and we say, look, this is how we define it. That doesn't mean that's how you have to define it. We just do it because we have to define something sometime. Otherwise, we'll never move forward,
I completely agree with you. Yeah. Completely agree with you. Also, can you share with us a little bit about your structure? So who is working with Institute of Art and Olfaction? So how do you set up? What happens during the selection of the fragrances? How you judge the fragrances? Who are the judges? I know it's a lot of questions, but
yeah, no, it's okay. I can totally talk you through it. Yeah. Well, so, I mean, the Institute itself, it's a nonprofit, so I'm the founder and the executive director. There's the director of operations who works with me, Minetta. We have a whole bunch of teachers who teach, increasingly internationally, since now we're all online. So it's actually been really cool because we've had people teaching from Israel and, you know, you name it.
Wow.
And then we have a board of directors. So that's the Institute side. Now the awards, you know, is a little bit different. So Minetta and I and the board of directors sort of run the awards together. I'm the director of it, so I do most of the sort of everyday work. And what that means, what that work is primarily is finding the judges, which is very difficult because you need people who understand perfume but don't have a vested interest in any one brand, you know. And it's impossible. Everyone has an interest in something. So the way we get around that is that we have them. Well, first I go with instinct, you know, people that I feel like, okay, these people feel right, you know, they feel honest, you know. We have them sign on basically they have to sign off on a code of ethics, you know. These are our rules. Like, you know, if you recognize a perfume, you know, you have to tell us, and you can't judge it. And you can't judge the category that if something that you're involved in was submitted, you can't judge that category at all. Like, you're completely in a different category. So things like that make it as fair as humanly possible. You know, we do our best. They judge blindly, which means all they get is the perfume and a little text that doesn't have any names in it. Yeah, and then basically, then the other challenging part about this is it's surprisingly bizarre. Calculating scores can be surprisingly biased. So we've had to really go through years and years of understanding how people's scores can affect results. By which I mean this, like if a perfume comes in that's really extreme, it's really, people love it or absolutely hate it. Typically that's going to be something that's somewhat interesting, right? But in most awards mechanisms, that thing would never, ever make the finals, because what happens is sort of the generic things that everyone thinks, yeah, it's good, it's okay, you know, that kind of rises because everyone judges it. It's sort of like what you're talking about with market research, you know, it's the same principles. So the sort of non-offensive or the crazy tends to rise to the top unless you put in mechanisms. So the way we counterbalance that is we added, I'm so sorry, this is probably so boring. Like,
No, it's not. It's not.
I spent years on this, so I'm like, let me tell you all about my spreadsheets. But we added this thing called X factor, which is basically an extra set of points a judge can give a perfume that they're like, you know, this is bizarre and I kind of hate it, but actually it's interesting. It warrants attention, and that helps get the more non-generically nice perfumes to the top, you know. And I think that helps, I think, make sure that the stuff that is fine in the finals is interesting stuff, you know. But you know, it comes down to, you know, there's stuff in here there's stuff that was submitted that I absolutely loved that didn't make the finals, and I was like, what? You know, it just always happens that way, you know. Everyone has their own opinion, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And it depends also on your background. It depends on what you like, and so.
It depends on the order in which you're smelling. I mean, if you have a bunch of ouds and then you have a rose, you know, a generic rose, you'll be like, what a beautiful rose, because it's different, you know. So that's another thing is we have to get the judges starting at different points in the process of smelling. It's really complicated. I mean, it's an extremely complicated process. And then we have to send vials to these people all around the world. We spend months making vials, you know, just filling vials. It's not glamorous work.
Just to encourage you a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Gabrielle.
See?
I mean, yeah. Okay, good.
So you start with like a blind test, a blind selection. So people just smell it and decide it, and then they write down. So what they write down? They write down like, I like it, I don't like. So
they're judging. Yeah, they have like three. They're basically judging numbers from 1 to 5. I have to double check. It was 1 to 10, then it was 1 to 5. But they're judging 1 to 5 in three categories. So the first one, you know what, let me pull it up so I don't misquote myself and get myself in trouble. Hang on. Because if I say it wrong, believe me, I'll hear from someone like, you what? You know?
So
let me come back to that question. I'm going to pull up our judging parameters.
Okay, perfect. And the judges, so they are always the same, or you are mixing or inviting new people, so it changes during each award edition? And also, the judge, you told me first that it depends how connected he is with category or the brand. He will be or won't be judging that category or particular group of fragrances. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the hardest thing is finding the judges. So we try to bring in new people all the time, but not so much that there's great inconsistency, because you also want a sort of consistency over the years, so that you can't just replace everybody every year. I don't know why I think that, but it makes sense to have at least some consistency, some crossover, in terms of taste. So every year we bring in new people and we let other people go, and then later we cycle them back in. But we only just recently changed it so that now there is a statute of limitations on how long anyone can judge. So it's a 2-year process. It's a 2-year cycle. So the people who judge the preliminaries this year will judge both the preliminaries and the finals next year, and then the 3rd year they're out for a year, and then they can come back if they want. So because what I was finding is people really enjoyed judging and they didn't want to go, So it was like I was getting
so much fun. It's so
people really liked it, and I had to be like, sorry, you're out, and people would get mad, So I was like, okay, we're gonna make this really consistent. So that's how we do it. And we have people all over the world. I mean, we have people judging from everywhere, as many places. We have yet to have a judge from Brazil.
For sure.
But we need, because I also am aware that, if we have only like California judges, it's going to skew towards what's happening in California just intuitively. We can't help ourselves. We like what's familiar, So I try to make the judges really diverse, in every sense of the word, also in terms of what they like or what their practice is. We have people who aren't perfumers also. I think that's important, people who aren't in the perfume industry, because perfume exists in the wider world, And
basically you have like 2 waves. The first wave with all the products, and the second wave with the selected ones, the pre-selected ones.
Yeah, exactly. So that was another thing is if, we had to, believe me, it's been so complicated to figure this out, but having 2 waves of judging allows, you sort of get the ones that do the best, and you sort of get those highlighted. And I was really keen to make sure we highlight as many brands as we can. We can't just have 4 winners and everyone else is see you later. So that was the finalist pool is actually the most important part for me of the awards, because we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of submissions, and you have these however many perfumes, 20, 23 perfumes this year. I mean, it's amazing. It's no small feat. But then in order to figure out the winners from that finalist pool, we do another round,
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's everything in blind. So they selected the best
100%.
creations in their opinions, and like gossip time. After everything is revealed, any surprises? You don't need to mention
every year.
What? This bottle for this fragrance, this packaging. So I was expecting something else. The naming, I'm not like.
Every year, I'm just like, what the heck, I mean, and good, things where I'm like, wow, I did not expect that to make it, and it made it, and I liked it, but definitely. I mean, I have the fortunate or maybe unfortunate reality that I can't smell. I barely smell anything until we're at the finalists, because I smell them as I'm making the vials. I'm like, oh, I like that. I make the vials, send it to the judges, but I don't spend time on the perfumes myself, because I'm processing them all, and it's also it breaks I'm the only person who knows me and Minette are the only people who know what number corresponds to what perfume. And I'm human, like there's people I really like, and I'm like, oh God, I hope they make it, and they don't, and it just breaks my heart, so I try to keep a super distance from it just for my own self-preservation, but now every year there's a surprise, every year.
Good. Very good. Yeah. So can you share with us how did you come up with the idea of adapting the award for the online version? How hard it was, or it still is? Because once we talk about fragrance, there's a lot of smelling sense that you cannot communicate through a video.
Yeah,
and the expectation also of everyone involved in the process, because the ones that are finalists, they were like thrilled, wanting to meet everyone in person, to be there, to celebrate together. How we were managing this new situation?
Yeah, it's unfortunately, there's really, I mean, yeah, it's I can't. I mean, what do? You don't manage it. It sucks, you know.
Okay.
What I'm trying to do is, well, first of all, I mean, as you can tell now, having spoken to me, I'm a pretty informal person, you know, so I'm trying to make the awards in general very friendly and very much community oriented. And look, it's not about fancy clothes and being all, you know, there's enough of that in the world. It's about the community. So I think the good thing about what the situation we're in is that we are all online more than ever. And so it is very easy for us to connect internationally, like you and I are right now, you know. And I think that has opened my eyes to the capacities and the potentials for that. But, you know, sitting in a room and having a drink together, there's no replacing that, you know. And there's not much I can do. I mean, we're doing these sort of meet and greets, which hopefully are sort of informed, you know.
I saw it, and I saw that one is already sold out, because
I'll add more tickets. It shouldn't sell out. That's crazy.
Because there was something that was already, you didn't have tickets anymore, because you have other things that you do. Yes, I saw that on Instagram today, I believe.
I'll fix that.
Because there was something, let me see here. I don't know, I see that later, then I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But I think that these reading meetings are really nice, because people have the opportunity to look, okay, I like better this subject, and I'd love to meet this person. So this group and not the whole thing right now, and step by step I'll be doing it. And everything you are like now promoting on your Instagram account, right?
Yeah, Minetta does that. Minetta does our Instagram. I love her for it. I think the meet and greets will be good.
Okay,
sorry.
Great. So I just have one comment here, which put the spotlight on me, like Team Fabio.
Yeah, I see them. Fabio would make a great judge. Fabio, haha, could be the one from here. Hey there, Fabio.
See? It's happening.
I'm excited to learn about what's going on in Brazil. I mean, you know, that's one thing that I'll tell you from my perspective, you know, is it's a big world, you know, and when you're trying to be global, you know, okay, I was in London, so I kind of know what's happening in London. We're in Berlin, I kind of see what's happening, you know, but I have yet to connect with the scene in Brazil. So I'm very, very excited to be learning about it and meeting you, and, you know.
No, we are going to have a lot of chats online right now, and we'll be meeting in person as soon as possible, because there's a lot of things that we can share and do together. So I'm so excited. I was so excited before this live starts, and I'm more excited even, because there's so many things that are passing through my mind that it's great.
That's my job, is to get you excited. And that's like all I'm good at.
You did it, 100%.
Good.
Perfect. So we have like 7 minutes. So I would like to bring attention to the independent category, because for Brazilians is the fragrance that we have today from AMI. It's AMI 8. I'm not gonna ask you, because I know that it's not your role to talk about AMI, because you have to be impartial, as you said before. But is the award the category that Brazilians are more connected, because there is a Brazilian fragrance as finalist? So if you can tell a little bit more about the category, and tell about also the other brands that are running there, the other finalists, so you can tell about them all if you feel free to do it, or whatever you want to tell about this category.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I hesitate to say this, but I'll say it. This has always been my favorite category, because in a way it's the most global. You get people from everywhere, and this category is the category where the perfume brands are collaborating with perfumers. You know, so we have people from Berlin. We have J.F. Schwarz-Lohse Berlin, who are finalists. We have Xerjoff, you know, who's we all know. I'm sure it's a fairly big brand. We have, of course, AMI with AMI 8. And the perfume was Samuel Moraes at Simrise. I think I said his name correctly.
Yes, you said right. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So I'm actually excited about this first Brazilian entry. for several reasons, but primarily because I'm very excited about Brazil, as I've said maybe 8 times, so I'll shut up about that. So anyway, then we have a perfumer of Cuban descent who no longer lives in Cuba. Renier Perfumes, a perfume called Behic. So yeah, Renier Perfumes is based in the Czech Republic, but the brand owner is Cuban, so that's cool. Ganymede from Marc-Antoine Barrois, Love Kills by Musk Milano, those fashionable guys in Milan.
I love what they do.
Yeah, they are amazing. We have a pretty interesting and cool, fairly small company, but they do really interesting stuff. Venha Parfum d'Auteur, based in Switzerland, and they have this perfume called Moiré that they only released in person at an event, much to everyone's frustration because no one can get samples, but it's cool. It's inspired by that pattern that happens when tights,
yes.
Moiré, yeah. And so on. I mean, there's a few. We have Bruno Acampora Perfumes has a finalist, Young Hearts, by Miguel Matos, a Portuguese perfumer. Zoologist has 2 finalists. They always, I got to give those guys credit.
I also love what they do because they are always creating something on the edge.
Yeah.
It's always something that, wow.
Yeah, they're pretty consistently badass, I think would be the word. Yeah, so they've been finalists before. So there's some people you see, they come up a lot, and I'm always like, gosh, is there a problem with their judging? And every year it's like, no, they just legitimate of their own result come to the finals again, and you got to give them credit. It's amazing. And then Posthume by Son Venin, which is a company based in Norway. I haven't
heard about it.
I think they're pretty new. They're pretty new. Yeah. So it's quite a few. And then November 2019 by Scent Trunk, which is based here in California. So it's gonna be interesting.
So how can Brazilians connect? It's going to be on the 17th, September 17th.
17th at 2 o'clock California time. So I think 7 o'clock your time. Are you 5 hours ahead of California?
Yes, I believe so. Here it's almost 8 o'clock.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, and it's open to the public. Anyone can come. It's free, with registration. Everyone's welcome. Just cheer on your Brazilians,
No, for sure. Look at here. So people are already cheering. So cheering for Ami and for her friend Samuel Moraes.
The perfumer,
also, of course, Luciana is cheering for her baby, which is really important to do. I think
you gotta love your baby.
Yeah, you have to cheer for what you create. So you have to be the first one to believe in that. And so people can just connect. So they are going to go to your website, which is artandolfaction.com. Is that right?
Yeah.
So they have to register. It's for free. So I'll just excuse myself, so I will repeat that in Português. Gente, quem quiser participar, vai ser no dia 17 de setembro a premiação. Vai dar para acompanhar ao vivo. Então é só entrar no site www.artandolfaction.com e aí vocês lá vão poder se cadastrar e assistir, participar, ver todas as categorias e saber um pouco mais a respeito, que vai ser bem legal. Então já olha agora, se prepara agora para poder buscar na agenda de vocês, tá certo? So is there anything else that you would like to share with us, or anything that you want to ask me? And of course, it's not going to be the first and the last conversation we are going to have. We're going to have a lot of conversations in the future, in the near future. But the space is for you right now, so you can ask.
I have so many questions. I don't, I want to know all about Brazil. So what kind of perfumes are doing well in Brazil right now? What kind of things are people excited about?
So Brazil is kind of tricky because, as you know, we are a tropical country, so it's hot most of the year, but Brazilians love fragrance that stick. So in terms of olfactory families, like Oriental goes really well, but really well. On the other hand, we look at Fougère, which is amazing also because it's so fresh, but there's Fougère in one side, Oriental in the other side.
So committed to perfume.
Yes. Really, Brazilians, like an average, they have between 3 and 5 bottles of perfumes at the same time. They are trying between 3 and 5 fragrances at the same time, and they buy a new fragrance every 3 months.
Wow, so that's a lot.
Every 3 months.
Just the average Brazilian, not just perfume fans?
The average Brazilian. Because,
wow.
Yes. Because as we were talking before we started the live broadcast, our market is a little bit different. So like international brands, like designer brands, are not that strong here in Brazil due to pricing, taxation, etc. So it's pretty much driven to local producers like Natura and Boticário, which are really strong. They are really big. They do amazing fragrance. They create some nice things, and they have very different pricing for their fragrances. Their portfolio today, I believe that even Natura and Boticário, each one that they must have at least 50 or 70 different fragrances. So
yeah, I remember looking at the website and being like, "That's a lot of perfume." Yeah,
it's a lot. So it's a little bit different the way everything happens here. So we do not have like big department stores like you do, like Nordstrom or Macy's, and so the fragrances here are pretty much or in franchisee shops or in small perfumery shops. In some clothing shops, we have some chains also, like big ones. They have an entrance a counter with fragrances, but mostly it's door to door or direct selling. That's the huge volume that we have.
Super interesting. It's funny. I was in Havana. I go to Havana in normal circumstances. I go to Havana pretty often. And one time I was walking down a street in Old Havana, just relating to the uniqueness of Brazilian perfume culture. And I went into a shop and they had all these Cuban perfumes, that were made by a company called Suchel, which is owned by the Cuban government, I think. And they had names like Un Toque or like Revolutionary or Che. And there were perfumes that were like really well known in Cuba. And no one outside of Cuba have ever heard of it. And there were famous perfumes in Cuba, which I thought was super cool, because you get this super globalized world where in every, duty free, you get the same stuff all around the world. And then you go to places like, I guess Brazil also, where you get this brand that is very specifically for Brazil.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
Are there a lot of independents that you're excited about in Brazil, in addition to AIX?
Yes, it's growing, like the ones that I mentioned to you, Sapiente AIX, and others. So they are doing a very nice job here. It's very difficult in Brazil due to regulations, what you can do, what you cannot do, access to raw materials, access to bottles, which is very difficult in Brazil. So I see that they are struggling to do something different, but at the same time, they are my heroes because they are doing something that sometimes is difficult for the big industry to do. But they are creating things, and which makes me very proud of what they are doing because it's a passion, and I believe that Brazilians have the right to smell whatever a person decides to create their own portfolio or their own library of fragrances, not only look at what's being selling on duty frees or big retail shops and etc. So they can have other brands and other fragrances, which is really nice.
I'm cool. I'm keen to learn more about it. I'll watch more of your lives.
Thank you. So we have more comments here. Let's see. Here in Brazil, we can see that we suffer some kind of discrimination. So it's super important that there's people abroad carrying our loveness and showing to you that we have so much to add. I think that discrimination, it starts with we discriminate ourselves. So sometimes Brazilian, and I think that it's something that is related to South Americans. So we say that we're not good enough sometimes.
The Americans do it too.
Yeah.
In between we're the greatest country on the planet. There's like, the English person is so much smarter than me because their accent's English, and you're like, what? It's the problem. Look, we're both colonized countries. It's the post-colonial self-hatred.
Oh, see, someone is connected. The perfumer of AIX.
Oh, hey, Samuel Morris. Congratulations on being a finalist.
So we have so much to talk, and we for sure are going to do other lives, and we are connected. So there's so much that we can exchange. I have so much to learn from you. And
well, likewise.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you very much for your time. I know that you have just come back from vacation. Also, you have tons of
my vacation was at home, so it's okay. We're not allowed to travel.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
I did nothing for 2 weeks. It was wonderful.
But you open in your agenda to have this live with us Brazilians and share the amazing things you are doing. So I have to thank you so much for what you are doing, the way you see things, the way you put this together, and the way you are so open and you're willing to give people information. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your work. Thank you for your work. Huh?
And
I look forward to learning more.
Thank you. And I hope we will see lots of Brazilian connected on September 17th. There's people saying like what they like it. So thank you, Elisângela. Thiago is saying a great live. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you on screen and hopefully soon in person. And we are in touch.
Yes, I look forward to it. Thank you. And congratulations again to Ami and Samuel, who's, I'm sorry for my pronunciation, Mr. Moraes. On your great accomplishment at being the first Brazilian finalist in the independent category. So well done.
Amazing. Yes, well done. So I'll finish as a Brazilian because we hug, we kiss, and so I will send you, like I do on my lives, a perfumed kiss, beijo perfumado.
I received, and a hug through the internet.
So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Obrigado a todo mundo que está aqui, que participou do live, que falando com a gente, trazendo suas informações. Realmente foi e está sendo fantástico. Quanto mais a gente puder trazer informação e dividir com as pessoas, é muito, muito, muito bom. E hashtag #GoAmi8. Thank you very much. Hope to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.